Chicky DeMaine, aka Debu, Debu.com, with your Debu.com video surf forecast update. This surf forecast update brought to you by Salt Life Food Shack with 2 locations, Jacksonville Beach and Coral Springs. Coming soon, Stewart and St. Augustine. Get shacked at the Shack, Salt Life Food Shack. Taking a look at this afternoon's satellite imagery, and just here east-northeast of the Bahamas, we can see that a cyclonic flow has developed here. This is an association with the front, and the rule of thumb during tropical season is always watch the tail ends of fronts to watch for an area of low pressure that may want to try and spin up. When we switch over here to the infrared rainbow loop, looking at the convection, again, here's this area east-northeast of the Bahamas. There's some limited convection in here, but when we drop back down in here towards Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, we can see this afternoon that there's some moderate to heavy convection that's firing up in here. Now, this looks like it may be ahead of the model forecast, and if this convection persists over the next 24 to 48 hours, we may see some type of development sooner than what the models are currently forecasting. Models' current forecast are showing that an area of low pressure is possibly going to develop next weekend, towards the end of next week and into next weekend, and we could see our first tropical depression of the 2013 tropical Atlantic cyclone season. Taking a look at this afternoon's model runs and starting you off with the GFS, and as you can see, the GFS is depicting convection east-northeast of the Bahamas in association with the front. It's also showing some limited convection north of Hispaniola. Now, looking at the real-time satellite imagery, it looks like that the convection is far more ahead of what the model is depicting, and as we go through the progression of the model, as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, we see that the southeast flow is starting to tighten up as a pressure gradient tightens up in here. And as we discussed last week, sometimes a surface trough can develop into the Bahamas and will enhance the southeast flow, providing Florida with a decent bump. As we work through the model and we get in here to Thursday, again, you can see that just like last week, look how it's depicting the convection. Sorry about that. Look how it's depicting the convection in here north of Hispaniola and off the north coast of Cuba in here through the Florida Straits. The southeast wind flow in here coming off Africa all the way through into the southeast U.S. And this is going to provide us with an extended period of at least some rideable surf. As we move into Friday, you'll see that on Friday, the GFS puts a little blip on the radar in here towards the Bahamas. And again, the gradient staying fairly tight through here. And as we work our way through the weekend, GFS takes that blip and moves it into South Florida, separates it into 2 areas and moves a piece of energy into the eastern Gomex off the west coast of Florida and leaves some hanging off South Florida into the Bahamas. Now, when we switch you over to the CMC to show you what it looks like, the first thing we'll tell you is that one of the characteristics of the CMC is the CMC always wants to turn something into a cyclone. So that's just one of the characteristics of it. That's not why we look at the CMC. We look at the CMC to see if the CMC is suggesting the same thing as a couple of other models that we look at. And as we go through that model progression, you can see it's showing us the exact same thing, but on Thursday it puts a blip on the radar in the Bahamas, but as we move through that, it now wants to move that up the east coast of Florida. And on Friday and Saturday, we could be looking at our first tropical depression of the 2013 tropical Atlantic cyclone season. As we progress a little bit further, as it gets into Saturday, this is June 1st. June 1st, the CMC now moves this area of low pressure or tropical depression up in here towards the Outer Banks. So again, the CMC is notorious for taking everything to the extreme, but we're just showing you what the potential is. Now, before we talk about anything actually developing, we've got some other environmental factors that got to come in line before we can see any type of development. And looking at the latest wind shear, we can see just north of Hispaniola, we've got some 30-knot wind shear in here, and over in the Bahamas, about 50 knots. We really need 20 knots or less to become favorable for some type of tropical development. And currently, right now, environmental conditions are unfavorable. So hopefully, this is going to change over the next 72 to 96 hours, and we're going to see something develop here towards the end of next week. Looking at the shear tendency for the last 24 hours, and mind you, this fluctuates often, but anytime you see the red and yellow in here, this is unfavorable for development. So those are the things that we're going to be looking at and monitoring over the next couple of days, so please stay tuned.